Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which OP's dealing with the house guest from hell. Their spouse's childhood friend decided to crash at their place for almost 2 weeks, right when OP's mom is undergoing a serious medical procedure. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Spouse's entitled friend insists on staying with us and being chauffeured around everywhere. Whew, boy, I had no idea people could be this unaware. My spouse's childhood friend announced a year ago that they were coming to our country and intended to stay with us. We tentatively said okay. Recently, we found out that my mother requires a significant medical procedure, will be hospitalized for a few days to a week, and recovering with us after. The three of us live together as roommates with bills split equally, essentially. This procedure falls smack dab into the middle of spouse's friend's trip. I told my spouse to tell their friend about the circumstances and that this would severely impact any sightseeing plans we had, and I would be out for the duration of the trip between work and taking care of my mom. My spouse's friend, despite driving for many years in their home country, did not want to drive while here and expected us to ferry them around. I'd hoped that, like most normal people, the friend would pick up on the fact that this is not a good time to visit us and make alternate arrangements, i.e. drive a car. But instead they said, well, as long as I get to see X while here, I'm fine. I should probably explain that my spouse is a very new driver and just got their license a month ago and has little experience driving freeways. They were, still are, terrified of these. I do most of the driving as a result while they're getting comfortable. Said friend arrived on Monday and since then expected to be picked up from the airport, a 2-hour drive each way, and spouse, the new driver, had to drive in horrific traffic to get them. I was busy with appointments for my mom and work. Did not offer gas money to my spouse for driving all that way to get them. Expects to be driven to sightsee each day. Again, never offers gas money or pays for anything. When in our house, has the TV up loud in the one room I enjoy hanging out in, outside of our bedroom. Doesn't pick up after themselves. Has not offered to pay for a single meal. Does not even pay for their own meals or drinks, save for one meal. So now we're paying to feed another adult. Should also mention that this friend has money, so it's not even a case of not having money. When taken to sightsee, never says thank you, and even complained about one place my spouse took them to. Takes long showers without even asking if we need the bathroom before. Does not offer to help with anything in the house. Refuses to arrange for their own sightseeing and is entirely dependent on my spouse, who I'd like to have around to support me during this stressful time, but don't want to be around the friend, so therefore I don't get my spouse. Lectures my spouse on the politics and social norms of our country, despite the fact that my spouse has lived here for 4 years and knows more than said friend does. Friend is a total social drain to be around and only wants to talk about themselves and their thoughts and complaints. Friend has not once said thank you to us for hosting or driving or paying for their meals. Friend is staying for 13 days total, all with us, all with the expectation of us driving them. I have social anxiety, spouse knows this, and have had to give up my 2 favorite spaces in the whole house so the friend has a place to sleep and a place to hang out when they're not in the bedroom. I work from home and had to relocate my work setup, previously in the guest room, to another part of the house, which was and is a major inconvenience as work is crazy right now and I'm having to balance taking care of my mom with that. The last 6 days have been hell, and I feel like I have no place in my own home, especially after a long day of having to be social while working and then having to continue that because of this house guest. The next 6 days will also be hell as this friend simply will not take a hint, and I've got the stress of dealing with my parent who's having a procedure that has a 10% fatality rate, and given her health conditions, complications could happen. Of course, knowing this friend, they probably wouldn't take a hint then either and would probably still expect my spouse to drive them places. As it is, my spouse asked if they and the friend should come up to the hospital to visit my mom. To which I said my spouse should, but not if the friend is going to be clinging to them like a sad puppy. I've talked to my spouse and they agree that the friend is a drain. They're not happy either, but they're trying to stick it out until the friend leaves and have already said the friend will not be allowed to stay here again. It's clear to me that the friend is massively taking advantage of my spouse, and I hate to see it. I'm just flabbergasted that people like this even exist, as every other house guest we've ever had has been considerate, occupies themselves, arranges for their own transportation, and genuinely seems to care about our lives as we care about theirs. This friend is one of the most entitled people I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. I'm flabbergasted you'd let this happen in the first place. Why wouldn't you cancel the trip when your mom got sick? And our second story. Your vacation is not your nanny's vacation. My cousin, let's call her Amy, works as a nanny, and right now she's with a new family that's treating her well. But let me tell you about the first family she worked for. When Amy got hired by the first family, they immediately started telling her about their annual vacations, trip to the beach, and Disney World in Florida, which they made sound like the most magical experience. They gushed about how beautiful it is and how lucky Amy would be to join them. But here's the thing, Amy is not into Disney. Fast forward to August, and the parents were getting frustrated because Amy hadn't committed to their vacation plans. At one point, the dad sent her an email where he practically scolded her for not being excited, saying she should feel honored to get a free trip to Disney World. He even went as far as suggesting she'd never be able to afford a trip like that on her own, which was insulting to say the least. It's like they couldn't grasp the simple fact that just because they wanted to go to Disney didn't mean Amy did. And here's the real issue they completely missed. It's their vacation, not Amy's. With 4 kids under her care, ages 3, 6, 8, and 12, Amy wasn't imagining relaxing by the pool with a fruity drink in hand. She was picturing herself having panic attacks trying to keep 4 kids safe and wrangled in a place as chaotic as Disney. The parents are the kind of people who check out when Amy's around, acting like she's got it all covered. So the thought of them helping out? That's a joke. They always insisted family outings were a team effort, but the reality was that Amy ended up managing everything. To top it all off, the parents even had the nerve to suggest that because they'd be paying for her airfare and travel, Amy should take a pay cut while they all enjoyed their vacation. Amy was stressed, and who wouldn't be? But in the end, she stood her ground. She let the family know clearly and firmly that this was a vacation for them, not for her. They might have tried to frame it as some kind of honor, but Amy was smart enough to see through that and refuse the offer. I couldn't be proud of her for drawing the line and protecting her own well-being. She's now with a family that respects her and her time, and she's much happier for it. Oh, this is my vacation? So you won't need me to watch the kids while we're there? And our next story. This happened to me a few weeks ago, and I'm posting because I haven't seen this person come into my store for a while now. I work at a small grocery chain that uses Instacart for grocery delivery. Since a lot of the shoppers do this full-time, I've gotten to know some of them, and a lot of the others know who I am. I live closer to another one of our stores, so I usually shop there if I have to buy food on my off days. One of the shoppers recognized me and asked me to help her find something that I didn't know about. Since it's a different store and not my department, I politely told her that I don't work at this store, so I have no idea what it was. Tahini looked it up later, and I'm not on the clock, so she should go and ask someone who works there. She became livid and started yelling at me, calling me an a-hole and saying that it's my job to help her because I work for the company. The general manager of this location, who I had previously worked with at a different location, was luckily in the next aisle over and came over to see what the commotion was about. She asked me what was wrong, which set the shopper off even more because it was obvious that we knew each other. So she called me a liar and screamed even more about how bad the customer service was. The GM and I were standing there staring at the shopper when the GM all of a sudden yelled, "He doesn't work here! If you need help finding something, why don't you go to his store and ask him there?" The shopper went silent and became white as a ghost with embarrassment. You could feel the gears and cogs in her head coming to a grinding halt. Then came to and yelled some more about how I should have told her. I did several times. Eventually, the GM told her to leave the store because they were refusing her service for causing a scene. 2 days later, guess who walks into my store and needs me to serve her from the deli? At that time, I was the only person on the counter, so she glared at me from a distance, probably waiting for someone else to come out so she could ask them for help. And I waved at her, then she walked away, didn't get any of the items she needed. About an hour later, I got a call from who I assume was her customer asking why we didn't have any of the 5 items that he had ordered. I told him that we in fact had everything in abundance and he should talk to Instacart customer service about it to file a complaint. Not only was this shopper kicked out of one store and failed to deliver one order, but she very obviously failed to deliver on part of a second order as well. Now she doesn't take on any orders that involve her coming to my store because I haven't seen her for a while. Woof. What a petty reaction to something so reasonable. I hope this didn't have consequences for her job, but I assume it would have. And our last story. Crazy neighbors are trying to steal our land. This whole situation has been insane. But here's what's happening. A little over a year ago, I bought some land from a guy named Gary. He inherited it from his father and his brother. Jerry inherited the other half. Jerry sold his portion of the land to the family after getting it surveyed, which gave them 80 acres, and Gary held on to the other 80 acres to the west, the part I ended up buying. The family who bought Jerry's land found out that there was a natural spring on Gary's half, now my land, and tried to buy it off him. Gary refused their offer, saying they were offering way less than the land was worth. A year later, they dug up some old quitclaim deed and laid out the land differently, placing the spring on their property instead of Gary's, but Gary wasn't having it. And when we bought the land, we were unaware of this dispute brewing in the background. We did our own survey when we purchased the land, which confirmed the spring was indeed on our property, just like the original survey had shown. Both parties signed off, and everything seemed perfectly legitimate. Then, a few months after closing, I got an unexpected call from the realtor. She told me the neighbors were now threatening to sue her, claiming that we bought their land. Nothing legally happened for months, but soon after, the survey stakes marking our property line started disappearing. I replaced them, documented everything, but didn't want to escalate by calling the police just yet, thinking it might settle down. Spoiler, it didn't. It got worse. They started pulling up stakes again, stealing our no trespassing signs, and even had the nerve to accuse us of trespassing on their land. I knew this was getting out of hand, but every time I wanted to involve the authorities, someone close to me kept telling me to hold off. Then things took a darker turn. They directly threatened to shoot me if I didn't stay off their land. When I finally called the sheriff, he did nothing, didn't arrest them, didn't even confront them about it. Instead, he created a 16.5-acre no man's land on our property, saying neither of us could go near it, and to make matters worse, they turned my own restraining order against me, making it seem like I was the problem. As if that wasn't enough, they started making wild accusations. They said we were putting no trespassing signs on their land, cutting fences, and even attacking their horse. It was completely false, but they were relentless. The property line wasn't even clearly marked anymore because they kept moving things around and they started claiming parts of our land, including areas near our house, were theirs. My mom had had enough. She felt unsafe living here and was ready to move out. Honestly, I couldn't blame her. It was terrifying. But the one bright spot in this mess was the title company that insured our property. They saw what was happening and sent in a lawyer from out east to help us. Update. It took months to get to court, but when we finally did, it was a total win for us. The title company's lawyer completely destroyed the neighbor's case. They had no legal leg to stand on. Their old quitclaim deed was deemed invalid in minutes, and the judge wasn't having any of their nonsense. They were hit with hefty fines, and the judge even reprimanded the sheriff for mishandling the situation. From now on, any further issues will be dealt with by the authorities immediately. And my mom? She feels safe again and decided not to move out. As for the neighbors, they've been warned. One more incident and they'll be facing serious consequences. We won big time. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.